class, we're about to start making our creature mugs, and I want to go over just some of the things you have out on your tables. You should have a variety of clay tools. Mine look different because I'm doing this at home, but basically any of them are good for creating texture or cutting through your clay. If you are lacking just a little sharp pointy tool like this, you can always just use an opened up paper clip that's really good for cutting into the clay. You should have a little bucket with a sponge. Like I said, yours looks different. I'm just at home. But this is really nice while you're working in the clay and your fingers get dried out. It's not there to dunk the clay in. It's there actually just to get your fingertips nice and moistened back up. So just every now and then I give the sponge a nice little squeeze. You should also have on your trays something that looks like this. It's like mud basically. And this is your slip. This is sort of like your clay glue. So make sure you have this handy and always make sure that it looks kind of like mine. If it starts getting dried out, let me know. And we're about ready to get started. Make sure that during any demonstrations when you're not, or just any time when you're not actively working on your clay, that you have your clay stored just like this. You have it wrapped up in your paper towel. I have a towel since I'm at home. It should be in your paper towel, and then take off whatever of the clay you need. So I'm going to need a little bit like this to get started, and then put the rest back into the towel. And I'm going to keep my wooden board out because this is where I'm going to build my project. So make sure that everything you build goes onto the board. All right, let's get started. All right, I'm about ready to start rolling out the base for my mug. And I'm making a really simple bear-faced mug here, just like Ice Bear from We Bare Bears. And it's going to need just a nice plain circular base. So I've got a wad of clay that I pulled off. The rest of my clay is off to the side, protected, staying moist. And I'm just going to put the wad of clay, smush it down so it doesn't roll away from me. And then I'm going to take the rolling pin and just press it in the middle, just kind of rock it back and forth, flip it over, and do the exact same thing. And just keep doing this until you get a nice sturdy base. We're going to cut off those raw edges, so it's okay if you don't like the shape right now. But I want to keep rolling this out until it's about the thickness of my finger. So I'm about there. I could stop now. I think I want it just a little bit thinner though. You don't want to get it too thin because it'll be flimsy while you're building the rest of your work. But that looks pretty good. All right, and then from here, you can just take any tool that you have and etch in what the shape of your base looks like. So if you're going to cut out a square, you can just kind of etch it in first before you actually cut through the clay. If you want just a plain circle, you can cheat and use your masking tape and you can trace the inside of this here. Or I think I want one that's a little bit bigger than that, but not quite as big as this. So I'm going to have to guesstimate a little bit. I'm going to use my folded out paper clip here just to lightly trace. And then I'm going to trace again. Oh my gosh, my cat's going to come jump in the picture here. Maybe not. What's up, kitty? What's up? Bye. She doesn't want to say hi. Alright, so I'm just sketching this out so it's a little bit bigger than that circle. And once I have a circle that I'm pretty fine with, I'm going to go ahead and take a tool, cut all the way through it. I'm going to cut it off in little chunks. And if it's not perfectly circular, that's okay, because we can kind of roll the edges one more time and make a nice pretty circle. Note how I'm working on the canvas. Better because the clay won't stick to the canvas like it'll stick to your table. Just always make sure that you dump out any large pieces of clay at the end of class off of your canvas. Alright, so I've got some like raw edges here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll this back and forth on its side. Just like that. And I'm actually not too worried about that first circle that I etched because this is going to be where I lay down my coils, so I won't even see that. Alright. All right, the next step is rolling out coils. Coils are what's going to build the height of your mug. So what we're going to start with is just a little hunk of clay, and you're just going to squeeze it back and forth so it starts to make like a little hot dog shape in your hands, and then you're going to take it and start to press and slowly roll from the center out. So you start in the center and then work your way out as you roll back and forth. If you roll too fast, it'll end up making little cracks throughout the center. And if that happens, just kind of slow and press, slow and press as you kind of work your way out. Like I said, that happens when you're moving just too quick. But as long as you go in a nice, slow, steady fashion, you'll end up making a nice coil. And you want to try to get it so that way the entire coil is about as thick as your finger. You can make them a little bit thinner if you want, but you do not want to make them thicker than your finger, because then you will risk having air bubbles in your clay, and the air bubbles will blow up in the kiln, which is not good. It'll break your piece and other people's clay pieces. All right, so that looks pretty good. I've already got a couple others already laid out here, so I can show you how to build these onto your base. Use that for a bit. All right, so here's my base. Notice how I have it on my wooden pallet here, so that way at the end it's a lot easier to transport over to the shelves. Before we start adding the first coil on, we need to make sure that we score and slip. And you can use any tool that you have at your table. You're going to need the slip for this also. And so for my first coil, it's going to go all around here. I want to score. Just roughening up those edges. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to cross hatch just like that. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing to the coil that I'm adding on. So I'm starting with this coil, and I'm going to hatch it all the way down. Now some of this coil I'm going to be cutting off, but then I will reuse it. So I'm just going to go ahead and score the entire thing. Go back the opposite direction. And any tool that can mark your clay like this will work. So I've scored both sides. Now it's time for the slip. Just use a finger. You don't need to get a whole lot, just enough to fill in those little cracks. If it's too goopy, it'll be hard to build upwards. So I've got it on the base. Now I'm putting it on the coil. So I scored, I slipped. Now I'm going to stick it to my base. You can kind of feel it suction together. And then once I run into where I started, I'm going to take a tool and just cut right through that coil. And then to really secure it, I'm going to score right in that area too. Put a little bit of slip back down in, and then smooth it shut. That'll help to make sure that liquid doesn't actually seep through there in the end. And then you can run your fingers along and smooth the edge. I wouldn't worry too much about this bubbling right here, how it kind of looks ripply, because in the very end you can take a lid and smooth out the sides. But it helps to get a little height first before you do that process. All right, I'm going to speed up and get a few layers up here. All right, my design is supposed to go from its biggest part at the bottom to the smallest part at the very top. And in order to get it to taper off that way, I've gotten this far just pretty much building it straight up. But to get it to start narrowing in, when I lay on the next layer of coils, I'm going to make the layer a little bit shorter than the coil that was down before it. So that way it actually starts to lay inside of that previous row. And then if you wanted the opposite effect, if you wanted to start bowing it out, then you would do the opposite. And you would make a bigger coil, a longer coil, and lay it towards the outside. So you can start to see the inside rim, and then it would build out like that. But mine needs to bow in, so I'm going to sit here and I've already scored it. Now I'm going to slip it. I'm just going to slip part of it because I know I'm going to cut some of this off here. Lay this on the inside. Looks like I should have slipped a little bit more. And then I'm going to cut this off. Score and slip these two edges together. And stick them together. And sort of smooth out the rest with my fingers. Alright, I need 1 or 2 more coils like that, and I think my shape will be the way I want it. So you can see it kind of looks almost like a honeycomb where it's kind of bowed in a little bit. And I told you before that we're going to erase some of these little bubbly lines with the lid tool. So I'll show you how to smooth that out later. Alright, now I want to show you guys how to use this little plastic lid to smooth out some of these ridges. You just have to be really careful to actually support the other side as you smooth it out. Oh, I've got 2 there. And as long as you just kind of comb it in the same direction, going perpendicular to the ridges, so I'm going from the bottom to the top here, you'll eventually smooth them out. And kind of fast forward the process here.